right, we've got people in here. For the people that are coming for the first time ever, let me kind of give you a lay of the land on CE Live. So welcome. I'm your host, Adam McQueen. I am the content lead over at Clue. And so if you're joining for the first time, let me just give a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. This is, as you can tell, this is a live session. Engagement is encouraged. So drop questions in the chat. If you agree with us in the chat, disagree with us, just let us know because we really want to hear. Number two, if you feel comfortable, throw the cameras on. There's nothing I hate more than presenting to kind of hundreds of faceless names in the dark. So it's already nice just seeing people up top. Feels like I'm actually talking to human beings. So if you're not comfortable, that's cool too, but I do appreciate it. And third, if you'd like, we enjoy having people come join the stage and ask their questions as well. So drop your questions in the chat, and Ben, my partner in crime, he's lurking in the background. He's going to be monitoring and he'll follow up with you if you feel comfortable joining us and asking the question. If not, all good too. But if you're keen, we'd love to have you on. And then lastly, yes, session will be recorded. Yes, we will send it out to you by tomorrow at the latest, guaranteed. And it will also be on our podcast feed. Last bit of housekeeping before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of it all. A common request from our last session was folks were actually kind of looking for a place to continue the conversation and connect with one another. So I'm going to test something out here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share a post on LinkedIn right as this session ends around the comparison pages that we're about to walk through. I'll share it with all of you in this Zoom room before we log off. I'll share out on an email so we can keep the conversation going there. We're going to have a formal place to go to really soon after sessions, because I know that that's something that people really enjoy and want to do after the conversations we have here. So that's my spiel out of the way. Let's introduce the person you actually came here for. I am joined. Where is he? There he is. You're hiding from me.
Hey guys.
Today I am joined by Federico Jorge, the founder of Stack Against. Federico is a conversion copywriter with a particular passion for competitive marketing, which made him a perfect fit for joining us today. Federico's focused his career on SaaS companies, and he found this untapped opportunity. He's kind of combined this love for competitive marketing and tech, and he began Stack Against to help SaaS products stand out in a crowded marketplace. Since launching Stack Against just a year ago, Federico and his team have helped companies like FreshBooks, Cloudways, and Signaturely steal leads and opportunities from big players like QuickBooks, WordPress Engine, and Docusign. Federico, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I'm seeing so many faces. That's crazy. So thank you. Thank you for the invite.
I hope I don't butcher your first name too well. I got docked serious marks in my Spanish class because I can't roll my R's. So I apologize on that front. I'm just going to put that out there. Very self-conscious about that in my life. And so I hope I didn't.
That's all good. That's all good. I get a lot of people saying Fred because you're like in English, you're used to Fred, right? So
yeah,
if you want to call me Fred or Federico, that's all good too. I'm used to it.
Dennis, I don't think the rolled R's translate over text, but I appreciate it. I don't know if that was a little bit mocking me, but that's okay. All right, let's get into this thing. So first of all, Federico, I just want to know, how did you get into this line of work? How did you kind of pave your way into this niche of competitive comparison pages?
It's kind of like, I think it all began at the very beginning. Like when you said, like I have a passion for competitive marketing, and it's kind of true. Like when I first discovered that I wanted to do advertising, I had my degree in advertising, and I think it was just pure chance, right? But some of the first ads that I saw and I started realizing, oh, this looks good. Like I would like to be somebody doing this kind of work, right? I didn't even really like know what advertising was, marketing was. I was like 18, 17 years old. And the first ads that I saw were those classic burn back ads, think small, or the Avis, We Try Harder campaign. And those specific kind of ads like attracted me. And I really wanted to be writing those ads, right? And then I got my degree, and then I started working in advertising. I've always been a copywriter. And then at some point in my career, I started looking more into the digital world. And again, kind of like by chance, or who knows, right? I got a couple of projects with SaaS companies. I wasn't actively looking for that niche, but I find it anyway. And then I loved the world of SaaS. Like I remember joining the SaaS Growth Hacks group on Facebook, which is a group that I still moderate, and I still participate a lot on a daily basis. And I felt like this is my people. This is the kind of people that I want to be working with. And then from there, like I had a few projects where different SaaS companies wanted me to write comparison pages. And I had a lot of fun doing those. And I realized like I have a really clear process to get us from A to C, right? From understanding the research side of it and the positioning, and then coming up with the angle for the page and where to get voice of the customer ideas to write these comparison pages, and the copywriting, which was the most fun for me. And again, I'm a copywriter, so I spend a lot of time like actively writing these pages. So I said, why don't I just narrow down my scope and just say, I'm doing comparison pages, and that's it. And I created the brand. I created Stack Against to try and kind of like attract companies that are interested in that specifically.
That's so cool that you've honed down and become an expert in this specific niche. And yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to get into today, is how you actually, the nuts and bolts, the tactics, the strategies to build comparison pages that are actually going to help you differentiate and beat your competition. So I guess let's do a high level overview too. Like, what even is a comparison page, and why should companies even use them?
Okay, cool. So I think the best way to look at comparison pages is realizing that they're a sales asset, right? You have your squeeze pages, you have your lead generation campaigns, you have like top of the funnel educational content, and that's all great, right? But I think where comparison pages really shine is when you look at them as a sales conversion asset, right? And the reason I speak of them as sales asset, it's because people are coming to these pages, buyers are coming to these pages when they're this ready to make a decision, right? They're either evaluating their options and like they need to make a choice in the short term, or they're moving away from a different vendor, right? So they're very warm, and maybe they don't even know about you, but when they're going to be doing their online research, mostly to try and find what other alternatives are out there in the marketplace, then that's when you want to intercept them, right? And they're coming in warm or hot, and you want to talk to them at that very specific stage. And because they're so close to making that decision, it's just about tipping them over to you and convincing them that you are the best alternative for what they need. And then boom, you got a lead, you got a free trial, you got a demo, and then you're getting a sale if you might like if you're able to convince them that yes, this is the actual product for you.
So what stages of the buyer journey are people coming to a comparison page? I know we've talked offline. You mentioned there's kind of different folks at different stages that are coming in, and I'm curious to see what they are and kind of how the messaging is maybe different for each person.
Yeah, I think overall there's three stages where comparison pages make a lot of sense. One is the evaluation stage. Sorry, and at this point, and mostly for B2B products, people are creating a short list, right? And here's another reason why Stack Against exists. Like you see these quadrants, right? G2 quadrants or Gartner quadrants, and they're getting crowded and crowded. There are no more pixels left for more logos there, right? So when people need to make a decision in such a crowded space, they're going to have a tough time really understanding what's the best product for them, the better fit, right? And they don't have time to be looking at 12, 15, 20 different products out of hundreds, right? Because sometimes you have hundreds of options. So they want to create a shorter mental list. They want to see like 5, 6, 7, 8 products that might do the work for them, right? And the goal for those leads, for those prospects, is not winning right away. It's getting into the conversation, is earning a place in that first shortlist, right? Then, and maybe I should say, your key strategy at that point should be make your comparison pages easy to find, right? Put them in front of people, especially if you know from your intel that this is a very crowded space and people are actively comparing you to a bunch of other alternatives when they come to you, right? So make your comparison pages easy to discover, try to get them to rank, put some money into PPC, like use them as part of your sales conversations, right? When somebody asks you how you're different, obviously you can send them to this asset, but if not, you can like preempt those questions by sending people to these comparison pages, right? So put them in front of your buyers. Then when you keep going down the funnel, then there's the decision stage, right? And then at this point, the shortlist becomes even shorter, right? You're gonna be trialing products or demoing products, and again, you don't have a lot of time. So you're gonna go from 5, 8 different products that you might consider to 2, 3 that you're gonna actively try. And then at that point, what your comparison page should do, like overall your marketing, but we're talking about comparison pages. What you want to do at that point is really be very accurate and clear in telling people how you solve the problem in a unique way. Because at that point, the biggest question is, how do you solve it versus them, right? Because I have these 2, 3 alternatives. I want you to tell me how you're different, right? I want to have that very, very clear in my head before I move forward. And then there's another stage, which is really interesting, which is the post-purchase, right? And this is where when somebody's coming from a different vendor, right? You're using MailChimp, for example, right? And you're frustrated with MailChimp for whatever reason. So you go back to the market and you start looking for an alternative. And one thing you have to consider for somebody that is at this stage, they are most aware, right? They absolutely understand the kind of problems that they have, the solutions that they're looking for, and they have a lot of experience with at least one specific vendor. So you can talk to them in a very straightforward way. You don't need to beat around the bushes. You can just go straight for the kill, right? And at that point, what you really want to capture is the negative sentiment that they have with this other vendor, right? Really spend time doing your customer research and understanding what's happening, what's frustrating users with your competitors, and then show them and give them proof on how you're not gonna make them go through the same challenges and how you're gonna solve that problem, and how basically like give them peace of mind that they're not gonna have to face the same frustrations if they come to you.
That's interesting. You really have to intimately know and research your customer and buyer then, right? Because at that evaluation stage, they might have a set of pain points that are far, far different than once they're in the post-purchase stage with a customer vendor. So you really need to understand the value props that your competitors would be driving or selling to someone that's in the immediate valuation stage. And then you really need to understand the actual pains they go through or the deficiencies your competitors might have when they're actually in using the product now. So that's actually a really good point. But one thing when I think about a comparison page, aren't they just biased though? Like, of course, if I go onto Trello's page comparing themselves to ClickUp, they're going to say they're better. No duh. So aren't they biased? Like, what's your response to that?
My response is yes, they are biased, but like I think I used the same line the other day, but all marketing is biased because you want to highlight your strengths and maybe don't talk too much about your weaknesses, right? Unless people start asking you, because that's marketing. That marketing is about showcasing where you're good at and where you're winning, especially competitive marketing. You want to really understand where you're winning and focusing your messaging around that idea and those promises. So yes, they are biased, but I think unless you're lying on your comparison pages, it doesn't really matter, because I always come back to the customer, right? And some people, when they reach out to us, some people will go, hey, how do you handle this? How do you make people feel like this is an honest piece of marketing or sales? And the reality is that people need answers to these questions. When they're considering buying from you or from a different alternative, they have this anxiety. How are you different? How are you going to solve this problem for me? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of feature parity, especially in SaaS, right? I don't know, like all the people here today, there's probably people outside of SaaS and tech, but especially in our industry, feature parity is very common. So most products should be able to do the basics of what you need to do, right? This checklist of, do you have this feature and that feature and this other feature? Most of these products are gonna at least check all the must-haves, right? But where it gets really tricky is after you've gone through that checklist of must-have features, they still don't know how do you do this in a unique way, or how does your product align with their values, right? With something that they believe about their work and how they should do their work, right? So they're coming to you and they're coming to your competitors asking that, how are you different? How do you solve this problem for me in a different way? So why not have an asset that tries to answer that question in the best way possible? And again, make it honest, don't lie, but absolutely showcase where you're good at and how you're winning and how you're beating your competitors head on. Like, say it straight up.
So Laura's question there, can we see some examples? We will be getting technical. We're going to dive through 2 examples as well when we get in here. I think we're going to get into like the nitty gritty as well, but I think there's like some principles or strategies that need to be in place. So I think this kind of ties to Irakli's question here as well about like, how do you do a direct comparison with a competitor without being seen as calling them out, being too aggressive? Like, I guess where's the limit in your opinion in terms of doing direct factual comparisons, features, etc., and kind of slinging mud, I guess?
Yeah. I think you need to approach comparison pages from the idea that you don't need to be the best. And some of these, like we can take a look at the examples, and I think we made this mistake in the past. When you claim we're the best alternative to MailChimp, for example, I'm going to keep using MailChimp as an example. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about MailChimp. First of all, it sounds empty. sounds like this blanket like claims, marketing claims that everybody drops at some point, right? And that's the wrong approach. You don't want to be the best. You want to be the better fit for somebody, or the better fit for a segment in the marketplace, or a better fit for people that have certain beliefs, or that have specific needs, or that have specific jobs to be done, right? And you want to capture that. And sometimes that means narrowing down your market. And again, we need to separate what's your marketing from what you put on your comparison page. And sometimes when you're competing against a specific brand, it makes sense to slightly update your positioning, or kind of like pivot your positioning and talk about how we're good, or how we're better for a specific segment of the market. And when you change your perspective that way, and when you try to say we're a better fit for XYZ, then you stop worrying about being aggressive and like talking trash about your competitors, because it's not about that. It's again tying this back to where you are strong and how you're different from them. And somebody here is saying, Tanner here.
Tanner, thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Let's hear the take here. What are your thoughts so far?
Sure. And I actually don't think that anyone disagrees with this per se. It may just come down to semantics. I want to make the point that I make a lot here when talking about what should go into, battle cards, comparison matrices, and that sort of thing. That it's, of course, you're emphasizing the positive because you're trying to help people close the deals, but at the same time, accepting the negatives and being prepared to address challenges, and making sure the sales folks are armed with those rebuttals, so that those comparison docs can even call those things out. They can say, look, we are weak at this. We know our competitors are better at this. So now the question that I ask you, obviously an example that doesn't apply in every case, is, does it matter to you?
I really want to dive right into like a real example, because the signaturely example we're going to share, I think Federico does an incredible job of flipping perceived weakness and flipping that the things where they might have shortcomings from a feature perspective. And he flips it to, like, I think what you mentioned there, Federico, like not just saying you're the best, because you're going to lose trust. That's a blanket, non-provable statement. Like, don't just slap, we're the best, we have the leader badge, and like all of that junk. Like he kind of frames his weakness to being like, but we're the best for this fit, for this reason. Like the shortcomings, it almost gets flipped on its head. And I think I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a teaser here, and it will make more sense when we have the concrete example. But it is a good point, because you can't just constantly say we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, because it's like, that's not how these conversations actually go, right, Tanner?
Yeah, and you lose that trust pretty quickly, that confidence that you need right off the bat. And if someone sits down to a meeting and that's the story they hear, they're going to dismiss you out of hand, because you're not doing the diligence to be able to speak to what other players in the market are saying they can do. So.
Actually, this is a good, I want to ask a question related to this then. Federico, when you work with kind of clients and customers, how do you identify those weaknesses? Like, how do you approach those? If you have a client or a customer, you're like, they see that they're weaker in this part, how do you approach that when you are building a comparison page then?
Can you repeat that? How do I approach what?
So if you're meeting with a customer, building a comparison page with them, and you've kind of identified some of the areas where they might be weaker, how do you tackle that with them? Like, what's that dialogue with them before even putting it pen to paper as well?
Yeah, okay, great question. And again, I think this is a great perspective, Tanner. And I think it comes down to making sure, again, to go back to the customer and understand first what's important to the customer, right? So maybe if you're losing, like, I don't know, I'm gonna make up a simple example here, but let's say my competitor is GDPR compliant, right? And we're not, for example. But the reality is that if that doesn't matter for competitors, like it doesn't need to have a place on your comparison page, because it's not something that customers want to hear about, right? And if it's not a selling point, or a particularly big selling point, then just omit using that on your comparison page. And if it's a big thing, something that customers really care about, is a deal breaker, then you have a few choices. You can not do a comparison page against that competitor, right? And I don't think I found I don't think we had a client where we had to face that scenario and tell them, hey, we should not even be doing a comparison page here. But probably might get to that point, because it's about trying to control the narrative, right? And customers are going to have a lot of resources other than your marketing and your sales to make their decisions. They're going to be looking at reviews, third-party sites. They're going to have tons of resources to make their choice, right? So from your corner, try to control the narrative as much as possible, and try to tell them, tell customers where you're winning. And if you're not clearly winning, either you avoid that topic, or you find a way to, kind of like you said, to flip it. And again, it needs to make sense for customers. And I think a good example, since we're not showing anything yet, is the Avis campaign, right? We're number 2, so we need to try harder. And that's the way they flipped it, but it's connected to a very important thing that customers care about, which is customer support, and, well, in that case, making sure your car is ready, on time, clean, that you're not going to have a flat tire, stuff like that, right? You're going to have a full tank when you get on your car. But they turn, and I think this is the one thing that I love most about competitive marketing. They turn a big strength from hurts into a weakness, or at least they were able to flip the narrative to make it sound like a weakness, or make it sound like their strength, right? Because they're going to try harder. And if that's the case, if it's impossible to omit talking about that, it's kind of like the elephant in the room, you can avoid it, then I would probably say you have to get really smart, really creative on how to flip that around and make sure it connects.
So there's like this chat is it's great hearing everyone's perspective, and there seems to be this like prevailing sort of sentiment or pain point people might be experiencing. I think someone asked a question about like what product aspects or features should I highlight in my comparison page, and then kind of trickling from that, people are saying that, hey, competitors can quickly fix product shortcomings, and like then our comparison page risks falling out of date, or these like competitive matrices you're gonna have to be constantly monitoring them. So I think that speaks to this kind of, how do you actually approach, what is the the best way to approach your competitive comparison page, and why is leading off with just kind of these feature comparison charts, which can quickly go out of date, why that is not the right approach, and how you kind of tackle that?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are making this mistake of just trusting the comparison chart. And I have some examples, and if you guys wanna take a look at actual examples, maybe we can do that. But basically, it goes back to this idea of how, like, you need to state how you're solving this problem in a unique way. I strongly believe that every product is different. might be slightly different, right? But every company has different founders. Every company has different journeys. Every company started trying to solve a different pain point, right? So nobody's building the same product. Nobody's, and unless you're cloning products and just trying to make a quick buck and whatever, right? But if you're bringing that to your product, then there's always going to be something unique that you can grab on and talk about that. And you should bring that perspective, and you should bring those values to your comparison. Because if you don't tell people how all of these features on this comparison chart connect to how you work and how you feel about the work that you should be doing, and how those features are going to impact your daily job, then you're not gonna like tell the whole story, and you're gonna miss them in this feature versus feature comparison without any perspective. And if they're not educated enough in terms of understanding how those features are going to make a difference for them, then you probably lost the battle at that point. Adam, you're muted.
Am I muted? Oh, sorry, I had some sirens in the background there. I think it's, to your point, it's sales collateral. And you need to have the why established, your unique perspective, your narrative, for lack of a better word. That needs to be first and foremost to set the stage that actually allows people to buy in and has that emotional tie to them. What is sort of the features, the social proofing that you're going to put in throughout the rest of the page. And yeah, it's sort of like in a sales conversation, whenever I've talked to product marketers or enabling sales, is like battle card content, for example, is you could have a list of features on your battle card, but that's not going to help a rep win a deal. It's having those concise differentiators and like your unique perspective and how you fit for that particular audience. You're not just better, because that's hard to prove, that's hard to build trust with, is we're better for this audience for this reason, and having that substantiated claim. So I think that the chat is getting excited here, and there's a couple other questions I want to ask, but should we dive into two of the examples right now and just have some people, I want to get people's perspective as we're diving into two of Federico's examples.
Yeah, amazing. I can share examples, and I'm just blown away by, like, I can't keep up with the chat. There's so many questions and comments here, and it's amazing. I would love to be able to address all of these.
I know, this is super exciting. All right, I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go through the first comparison page, and that is Signaturely versus Docusign. So let me share my screen here. I believe we are up.
Yep.
Where is it? Oh, we're a little far down. Okay, so here we've got Signaturely against Docusign. Federico, do you want to kind of lay the groundwork? What's the unique perspective here? How are you differentiating from Docusign from the get-go? What's going through your mind as you put pen to paper here?
Yeah, awesome. I think this page ties back to a lot of ideas that we've been discussing already. So it's a great example. First of all, to give you some context, Signaturely is a pretty young product. I think they launched 2 years ago, 3 years ago tops. And if you think about it, somehow they're not competing against Docusign, right? They're not going to be stealing Docusign customers. It's kind of tough, right? But they still want to capture that big anchor that is Docusign, right? Because people know about Docusign in the industry, and from an SEO perspective too, there's a lot of volume around keywords, comparative keywords for Docusign, right? Docusign alternatives, alternative to Docusign, Docusign versus XYZ, and you want to capture that traffic, because that's people that maybe you're not going to be a great fit for, but some of those buyers are just starting the research and they use Docusign as an anchor, but they want something else. They want an e-signature tool, and they use Docusign just as an entry point to start finding, okay, what other options do I have, right? So that's why we were using Docusign here to compare them. And then from a positioning point of view, we really wanted to use Docusign as an anchor because it allows us to really say, this is everything Docusign is, and we're the exact opposite. The only thing that's basically the same is that we allowed you to put a signature at the bottom of the document and get it signed, right? So that's the context.
And that's where I'm looking at this like copy is like it's all around simplicity and ease of use, right? And you're immediately positioning yourself to an audience that probably doesn't need the heavy lifting or the complexity that sort of Docusign might bring with it. And you can even see it like it's straight up, it just straightly says, for people who want to keep it simple, create free account, free forever, always simple. Like it's reiterated and punchy to the point. And then what I liked here is now we immediately go to a side-by-side comparison here. So we've got Docusign on the left, Signaturely on the right. Again, one thing that stood out to me right away was that I think with simplicity, and I think you there's a tone to as we go through this landing page, there's like a personal tone to all of the copy here. It feels like it reads how you talk. For example, even something as small as like Signaturely makes signatures super simple. Copywriters would probably say cut super, but it feels like it's someone talking. That's something I would add in, even though I usually want to cut things like that. And it feels like far more approachable, like the language. And I think that kind of embodies the tone that you're trying to go throughout the rest of this page.
Yeah, if you want a little bit of insider info, I helped the guys at Signaturely to build their website, their whole website. I work on their homepage too and other assets. And we were heavily considering stupid, simple signatures. That was the main tagline that at least I wanted, right? The copywriter. It didn't happen. They're using super simple signatures on their homepage, but we wanted to bring that here too. And you say drop the super, but I like the alliteration, like signature super simple, kind of like sounds good. And if it was up to me, I would have put like stupid simple signatures there too. But that's okay. You can win them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds conversational. It sounds friendly. It sounds approachable. But again, it's not just because I wanted to use that tone of voice. It's because this is a product for roofers and plumbers and small accountants and freelancers. These are people that, compared to Docusign, they don't have a document workflow. They're not slinging documents back and forth between legal and compliance and sales, and then the client, which also has a legal department. None of that. These are just people that they want to get the signature, they want to get the paperwork out of the way and get down to work. And sometimes even the signature is like that friction, that last minute friction to getting the sale. Because unless you sign this document, we can't get started. You're not gonna pay me and blah blah blah. So you want the whole messaging was, we're helping you get the signature, and then we're getting out of the way. We're not trying to complicate any of that. So we try to make that really really clear.
So then obviously we have our social proof from a happy customer. But also I want to get into sort of, there's the G2 reviews. We jump into negative G2 reviews about Docusign. So what was the rationale for going that route and really emphasizing the negative side of Docusign?
We sometimes use negative reviews for our competitors to drive to hammer on that idea, like what you're showing right now, like ever feel like technology makes things harder? I like the approach of first stating what's the problem with the tool that you're using right now, and only after that showing what your solution is, right? So when you're at this point on the landing page, which is talking about the problem, you want proof of that. It's not just something that you made up, right? You have to sustain that with actual with something that feels real, and quotes from real customers that you can even go on G2 and actually find these quotes makes it real. And it also makes it less biased, like what we were talking before. This is not something that we're making up about our competitors. This is something that actual customers are saying and are complaining about these tools. So it makes it all more real, and it makes it all like it crystallizes the problem.
Totally. And honestly, it's good like using negative G2 reviews. Like it's hard to find negative G2 reviews too. So I even add a little bit more clout. I want to get to this next bit because I'm going to jump to one part, which I think speaks to what Tanner was talking about with you about, okay, where do you acknowledge your shortcomings, and what, instead of just ignoring them, what do you do with them in the context of creating a comparison page? And I wanted to share the feature chart that was created here, which is, where are we going? It's right down here. And first of all, as well, I'll let you take this one away. Take this one away. What was the rationale behind this feature chart?
Okay, awesome. So a few things. First of all, the comparison chart comes close to the bottom of the page, because again, if you're familiar with pain agitation solution, you know, this classic copywriting formula, the page kind of like works like that. First, we state what the problem is, then we agitate that problem, we just seen that, and then we present the solution. And then at that point, the user, if they're convinced by your approach, if they understand what you're trying to convey here, and if they agree with your perspective, then at that point, they've lowered their barriers, and maybe they want to spend more time looking at the features and that specific comparison. So it comes at this point. And then what we did here, we tried to flip that around, kind of like, again, like AVs. We wanted to, again, support the main narrative. For us, every single section on your comparison page should support your main idea. And the main idea, the main positioning idea here was for people who want it simple, right? So this section should talk about simplicity too. It needs to be attached to that idea as well. And we use that anchor, like I said before, of Docusign, and what people know about Docusign, which is this big, complex product that allows me to do a lot of great stuff. But at the same time, it's a lot of stuff that, why should I even care about if I'm a roofer or a plumber or somebody else that fits the kind of like audience that's naturally trying to attract and convince. So we're telling readers, yes, Docusign has all of these features. They're amazing, and we don't have any of these. But the question is, do you actually need it, or do you want to and this is the last row on this chart, or do you want a simple 1, 2, 3 process that gets your documents signed every time? And if that's what you care about, then we have it, and they might not.
And the cool thing is, again, simplicity, similar to like saying we're the best, saying we're simple or we're the easier solution is a claim that a lot of companies will make. And it's a super hard claim to prove.
Yeah.
And so, and that's your anchor. That's like the narrative that you're sharing. That's your like POV compared to DocuSign. And so something like this is a very unique way. And also, again, I'm just talking the tone, being humorous, feel like a human's actually written this. I think is part and parcel with this like simplicity element. Like this is actually, you're far more relatable, the copy. And this chart kind of flipped what might be shortcomings on its head. And yeah, I love this. And to Tanner's point, I think this is a great example of what you can do to turn something on its head when it's a perceived weakness. The last thing for,
and I think, sorry, let me add this. And I think it adds also to the idea of how can you address certain topics without being aggressive and without trash talking your competitors, which we're kind of doing here. We're kind of doing that. I'm gonna accept that. But if you do it in a way that is charming, then people are not gonna feel hurt about that, or it's not gonna impact negatively on your brand, because like if you're charming about it, if you're elegant about it, then people are gonna like you for it.
And then the last part I loved as well is the value add here at the bottom, ready to use templates. What I love is, again, you're speaking to simplest, you're talking to people that don't need the bells and whistles, as you mentioned. They want simplicity. People love templates. And that kind of light value add that you're going to provide something that already kind of lessens the load, lessens the burden on them. That was a nice little touch, I thought, to close. We've got 10 minutes here, so I want to jump to the next one. And also, just to kind of have side-by-side perspective as well. So the next one here we are doing, this is ProcessKit's comparison page to Asana. So I want to get into sort of the principles in play here before like the tactics, because Asana is a giant in this task management space. So what did you and ProcessKit do with the initial point of view and your perspective here? Like what's the strategy to compare yourselves against Asana?
Okay. Okay, so first of all, I remember exactly when we sat down with this client during the first call. We didn't, like, it wasn't even started the project, and they said, I don't want to be aggressive on these pages. I love Asana. I've used it, and I think they said I still use it from time to time, like for my personal stuff. So I don't want to diss Asana, right? But I still know, and this comes from like their own intel, people are coming to us and they're saying, I was using Asana, but, or I tried Asana for so many years, but, and the people that are coming to us, they're not finding the kind of solution that they need in Asana. And but still, this is very similar to the Docusign example. Asana is such a big force in the project management space that somebody that might be a great fit for ProcessKit, when they start researching alternatives, they're gonna end up at Asana, right? Mm-hmm. Every road leads to Asana at some point. Yeah. If you're looking for a project management tool. But ProcessKit, what they do really, really great is it is a project management tool. You could say it's a project management tool, but it's built in a way that it's great for companies that work like close to 100% of their tasks are driven by processes and SOPs, right? So if you're a creative agency, let's say, you might want to stick with Asana because you want that flexibility of every project being different. Like for this client, we're going to do a website and some emails and some copy and some design. And for this other one, we're going to do paid traffic and we're going to do PR. And if you're an agency doing a lot of stuff, then you want all your projects to look different. But if you're a productized service, or if you're a narrowed down agency, and I'm a great example of that, Stack Against, all we do is comparison pages. And all of our projects look the same, except for how many pages are you buying from us right now? And do you want just a copy or do you want copy and design? That's the only difference. After you tell us that you buy your specific package, then every single project looks pretty much the same. And we have SOPs for every step of the process. So we're a perfect fit for ProcessKit. And I actually use ProcessKit and not Asana. So we really wanted to highlight that. And we wanted to attract the kind of companies that fit that description. And in that case, what we're telling them is Asana is great, but it's not great for this particular thing, which is recurring tasks and managing SOPs. And if you need that, you better come with us.
Yeah, because you can't just come in and say you're better than Asana. Like they're the market leader. You can't come in and it's just, again, it's like the messaging portion. If you're the best for everyone, you're actually going to be the best for no one, right? So you've kind of targeted like this kind of subset or niche that you're going to get your foothold in. And it's probably, I think, again, this ties back to customer research, understanding your solution and where you win most too, right?
Yep.
Like ProcessKit have had to do proper research to understand, okay, recurring tasks is where we win. So we need to hammer home that unique differentiator right off the bat, right off the get-go. So that's an interesting kind of approach to tackle a massive competitor, similar to the Signaturely Docusign one.
Yep.
Going into this one as well. All right, we've got no shortage of negative reviews again on G2 and Capterra. Sorry, G2 and Capterra. What's the strategy again for these reviews in particular for Asana? Were there particular reviews you were looking for, or like, and there's a lot, like usually that you get a handful, but like we've got, how many have we got here? 8? Like,
yeah, probably 8. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like it feels like a tactic because we've seen 2 pages and both of these pages use this idea of using negative reviews, but it really is hard to avoid. And when we're working through these pages, we dive deep into research before, like we create a very strong brief and agree to that strategy with the client before writing the actual page. And when we're researching for that brief, we spend a lot of time analyzing reviews because that's the most scalable way for us to get voice of the customer research done, right? And when we start analyzing these reviews, we identify trends and patterns. And this idea starts shaping up in front of our eyes in a way that is impossible to avoid. Like when we start seeing this, and then it's so easy to go back to the client and say, this is how people feel about Asana, and you solve this in such a specific way and in such an improved way that how can we not talk about this? How can we not make the whole comparison about this, right? And then we use those same reviews to try and get buyers and readers to feel the same way as we felt as we were reading them, which is it's an actual truth, and real customers are telling these stories. It's not us. It's actual customers supporting what we're trying to tell you here, right? And again, we don't try to make this aggressive. We're just trying to put the spotlight on how people feel about these tools.
The social proof as well from G2 reviews, Capterra reviews, like it's real user reviews. So there's already more weight to it. There's more credence than like arbitrary leader badges, right? As well. Like this is, you're really kind of sharing directly the voice of the customer within this page right then and there. And I don't know, it just stood out to me. It's usually you see a handful and there's a lot of reviews here. So I just thought that was a unique thing. We're really short on time. I wanted to drop one final question on this, and then I will drop the LinkedIn post in the chat because I think the conversation is just going to keep going on. There's a great point as well from a Dennis that the cool thing about both of these pages as well is just starting with one unique value prop. Don't get too vague. Us versus them, like we're the best. Like you've really honed in on one specific value prop that makes it more tangible, and then you can actually start to sell a proper narrative. The last question I had is integration here. This is, out of all of them, this is very prominent. So what is there a rationale behind having the Zapier integration featured so prominently on this page?
Yeah, and here we're not winning the battle against Asana because Asana has probably more integrations than ProcessKit, but because of the nature of these productized service companies, they want to automate as much as possible. And this is another insight that we have about these kind of companies, right? If they can automate every step of the way, they're gonna go for that. They're gonna aim for that. So having safer integration and being able to connect all your tools is absolutely 100% necessary for them. These are companies, like I believe, I don't remember exactly, but I believe a lot of the leads that ProcessKit were getting were from the Zapier integration page, right? So this is an absolute must-have. So even if you're not winning against your competitor there, or maybe you're similar, you want to put that on the page because it's a critical element that buyers want to see and want to like check on their list.
Totally. That is that's a great example. Yeah, and it just stood out to me. So it's cool to get the explanation. There's always a why behind each part of these comparison pages, and to kind of shine a light on that. We've run up on time here. Right there, look, bang, 12 o'clock on the dot. The chat is going off right now, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm dropping a link to my post as well in the chat if anyone wants to keep going, kind of continuing this conversation. Federico, where can people reach you as well?
Okay, awesome. I'm just adding my LinkedIn to the chat because I want to follow up with everyone. And Adam, please make sure that I get access to this whole chat history, because I couldn't answer a lot of questions. I think I talk too much sometimes, so sorry for that, guys. But if you want to, like, please connect with me on LinkedIn and drop the same questions you drop here. And I'm going to spend the next few days, if needed, replying to all of you guys, because I love, even the ones that disagree, like, just drop that on LinkedIn, please do. And then find me on, like, I can drop that too at stackagainst.com. That's our company's website, and you're gonna see our offer there. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, because it's a simple proposition. But yeah, people are really liking it.
I appreciate, Federico. This was so awesome. I'm so stoked, and I'm sure we're gonna have you back again for some more comparison pages, because I think there's a lot more meat on the bone. So folks, as well, follow up. Where do we want to get into the nitty gritty? Because I think we can go even more specific on here. There's so many other questions. I appreciate everyone's being so active in the chat, and some of the great questions today. And we'll catch everyone next month.
Absolutely. Thank you.